Okay, so the interesting part is that इसको कट कर देना ठीक है ये जो
Hello, ma'am. We warmly welcome you to the page of Bright Leads.
Thank you.
As we have Miss Marianka Singh, as she has been the assistant professor in various universities, and currently she is serving as the program coordinator in the Capacity Building Commission. Thank you so much for being here, ma'am. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you,
to have
Sakshi,
you.
for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, ma'am, as you being a law graduate, how was your 5 years in the law school?
So I've done my bachelor's, which is BLLB from UPS, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies. So I think as for any law school in the country, the entire stretch of 5 years, if you look at it, it's very rigorous, right? It's demanding. You have so many things going on for you, which all of you can relate. So you have one project after the other. So you're technically never free. Then you have your midterms and you have your end term examinations. So in this entire grind of just, traveling from semester to semester and then intermittently going for internships, you barely get the time to understand um, in light of what is the career that you want to pursue, right?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
it's just too much happening, too much pressure, and you hear people talk about interning from all top tier law firms and writing the best of papers.
Yeah.
And then you in the middle of it, I think you tend to sort of you find yourself clueless also at times, and you self doubt a lot, right? So I think so was the case with me also for the initial 3 years of my law school. I was pretty much a student who was living from semester to semester, one to the other, and studying all the subjects, heavier subjects, trying to find my interest. But my intent in those semesters was just to sort of pass through the semester, get decent grades for myself. And since I was studying at a very good place, Dehradun, right?
Oh, it's a beautiful
Beautiful
place, ma'am. It's a
place,
beautiful
right?
place.
So I think there was too much to explore also. So I was doing treks. Rishikesh was near. So I was rafting
Missouri,
for,
Rishikesh, all of
yeah,
that.
I mean, one project you complete and then you have this sense of such big achievement that you want to go raft probably or go hike in the mountains. Again,
Yeah.
Missouri was close,
Yeah.
right? So I think that I mean, for those initial 3 years, that was pretty much my trajectory. It was after the third year that I sat with myself
Mm.
and thought as to how do I want to go about it. And that I will answer in the other question that you have as to how I decided on what
So, ma'am,
career I want to
actually,
pursue.
I'm coming on that question also.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, Sakshi.
what
So
was the time when you decided that, yes, this I want to pursue in my next coming up years?
So Sakshi, I am a believer of work-life balance. I don't know how much or how many people now in India agree to with all these giant conglomerates asserting on having a 90-hour week. I mean, I thought differently, and I wanted to have that stable work-life balance
Hmm.
sort of a thing. And in the law school, I was somehow able to manage it. My projects, then other internships, then you had, like I said, you had certain competitions. There was other
Debate,
things,
moot
legal
court.
aid. Yeah, yeah, so many things happening. I wanted to pursue a career wherein I can have that time for myself because I like to sketch. There are so many other skills that I feel that in that academic grind we tend to miss out on. So I thought to myself that I wanted to have a profession which gives me that time to
Hmm.
also learn new skills. And while I was exploring and navigating after, I mean, having done so many internships, litigation, corporate, I realized that I had a knack for teaching.
Okay.
I taught as early as grade 11th. I taught some students up till 8th, 9th, and 10th. So that is when I realized that I really want to teach. It gave me a sense of satisfaction. And then I checked the syllabus. You just can't, have a knack for something and then not know how to go about
You have
in
to have a proper
competitive.
knowledge about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I think competitive exams test you on a different level. The strategy is very different.
It's
You know,
like
you
CLAT
can know a
exam.
lot. Yeah, you can know a lot, but to clear competitive exams, I mean, it could be anything, judiciary, net. So you need to have a strategy-based approach towards it. And then, so that is when I thought that I need to, probably my fourth year or end of fourth year, um, there's a very interesting story uh, that, I mean, you mind me
We would
sharing that
definitely like to know that, ma'am.
story? So, to put it short, I think I was as clueless, like I said, didn't know how to go about my career choices. Met a few teachers who guided me. I mean, there were a lot of young professors who had come to teach us in that semester, particularly. And, that's very inspiring and relatable when you see people who are like more or less your age, right? So, I mean, I spoke with them and I was very honest and candid with them. That, sir, fourth year, I'm in my fourth year. And if you ask me, I am not very aware of a lot of tactical knowledge, a lot, because you read through books and then you
Yeah.
just, you go through the semester one by one, you pass the semesters with good grades. But I don't know how much of it is making you a good advocate, right? So I spoke with them and I realized that, I mean, there were two very different schools of thought that I had at that point of time. One who told me it's too late for you to even say that you don't know anything and then start something afresh, right? Because you pick up books in your fourth year, if you pick up constitution, you realize that you don't know half of it, or probably you don't even know 20% of it. There was one school of thought who told me that, oh, right, this is when you wake up and realize that you want to do something. And then there was this, thankfully, I also met this other group of professors, and then, my friends, uh, particularly, one particular professor who told me that, yeah, I mean, it's the absolute perfect time because you're in your nearing fifth year, and now you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And this is absolutely the most incredible time for you to have a lot of time and then, start preparing, because I was extremely demotivated when a couple of my friends who were preparing for good 2 3 years, they told me, oh, this is net is the exam that I'm preparing for.
It actually lets you down.
Yeah, I thought that I'm just starting out too late, probably. So I think, yeah, so that
then all
worked
the
out.
trek come to the mind.
And I was still trekking. Okay, so the interesting part is that I had my exam in March or April, and I still had a trek planned in the month of January, which I said a no to for the first time ever. But so I said a no to, but my friend somehow convinced me that all these 4 years all you've done is trekking, and now when we want to do it collectively as this huge group, one final trip that we wanted to do, you're saying a no to. But eventually I went for that trip.
I want this kind of courage and friends in my life, which I'm not having right now.
I'm sure eventually by fourth year, all of you will be on the same page and just wanting to go for trips.
I hope so, ma'am.
Let's see.
So, ma'am, after like you decided that you want to pursue teaching as
Yeah.
so, ma'am, like first for the law student like us, what are the best alternatives career in the legal path other than these litigation, judiciary, and corporate? These big terms where जब हम सुनते हैं when we get into the college of law school is like, okay, fine, this is litigation, this is corporate, Ketan, and many other much more bigger law firms which we have.
No, Sakshi, I think you're very right that it's very intimidating, especially for somebody who is coming from a non-law background or who's lawyer for the first generation. Because you've never heard of these terms, you've never heard of any legal jargons in your house, right? And then you see that there are some people who are just interning at top-notch law firms
Yes,
and
ma'am.
asserting that, right? They wear it as as a feather in their cap or another feather. But I would just like to tell you that half of it is noise. I wouldn't say that you don't learn a lot or you don't have that kind of exposure, but I think if your fundamentals are clear, by fundamentals what I mean is that if you've decided, I mean, not even if not early on, let's say by second, third year, right? If you've experimented at you've had different kinds of internships. One may be at an NGO, something as basic as doing philanthropic work. Then you can have an internship experience of litigation. And by litigation, what I mean is that you will not be able to understand anything in the first internship that you do, and that's completely fine, which nobody tells
Especially
you.
in the first month, like
Yeah,
it is like, what are we exactly doing? We have no idea.
you
What
will
is
not
this
understand
stuff?
what is a bail bond, wakalatnama. You
Yeah.
basically, in your first internship, you're just there to understand. You're just there to have the look and feel of the system around, right? So after you've had these setups, these experiences, then you can also maybe have an internship at a corporate firm and then understand how they work, right? And then there are a lot of other fields too. Fields like, so for example, you've legal journalism has come up really well. Then you have a lot of these AI driven tech based legal startups. Then you have a lot of opportunity in policy making. So policy making again at these, let's say, ministries. So you get a hands-on experience of how policies are drafted or how they're implemented. So at grassroots, so let's say hypothetically, there's a policy which has been made at the pensions, and if you're interning there, so you understand how one ministry is looking at that, how do I frame it, looking at that policy from one lens, and vis-a-vis the other ministries implementing the same policy in their own ways to the best of, again, citizen centric convenience. So when you work in policy making, you get to have a very good ground reality check of how policies are implemented. So that is one opportunity, and you get to understand stakeholders management in the government. You get to understand how so many people within the government at different years are playing an instrumental role in that citizen centric initiative, right? Or what is it to be called a true Rashtriya Karmyogi again? So that's a very different experience, right? You basically, that's again, like I said, hands-on citizen centric initiative and then implementation. So that is one aspect. You have a lot of these startups coming up. So then if somebody wants to understand how startup ecosystem is working, because that's a niche area, they're very new, they're not well aware of the legal uh, instrumentalities involved in the process. Some startup going for acquisition, or some startup just going for IPO. So there are so many levels to it again. The Deloitte report I was reading was again stating that there would be 4 times increase in, so by 2030, we'll have 4 times increase in the number of people who are going in these legal based startups, AI based startups. Yeah. So again, how will it increase? Obviously, that means that there will be a huge amount of demand, and the supply is going to come from within all of us, right? So then if somebody develops a niche, so let's say if you start as early as second years, you start writing papers on startups and AIs, and then responsible AIs, right? Supreme Court judgments also, you will see, is now adopting a lot of these AI based models for judgment predictability and couple of other things. So if you start as early as second year, you write some papers, you get a hands-on basic understanding, then you work at a firm that that has this expertise. By third, fourth, fifth year, you will definitely be in the top 10% in the country, 10% of students who is having a credible understanding of that domain. And if you sit for an interview,
actually work, and what
what is the demand? Yeah, what is the industry's demand? I'm just saying
what they want from us.
Yeah. And then there's M&A also, mergers and acquisitions also, very promising. Due diligence required for these startups. अब कोई acquire कर रहा है किसी company को, so that person, if you see, that company will not just be trusting these online documents available, right? They would want to have an independent lawyer, or not even some. So the other company producing your documents, you would not want to have absolute trust in those models. You would want your own independent firm to do the due diligence for you, right? Before you go for acquisition, because there are a lot of disclosures which have to be verified and validated. So I think in that light also, there are a lot of opportunities these days.
So, ma'am, according to you, like, do you think one should, as a law student, I'm asking that one should pursue internship like in almost each and every field before finalizing, okay, now so this I have to do, like for an example, if one wants to go in the corporate field,
Yeah.
now that person doesn't know corporate means what, taxation, mergers and acquisition, something else. So do you think it is important for the law student to have an exposure in during the time of internship, like one should not do the same kind of internship, like for an example, I did in an NGO, then in a firm, then in Tees Hazari also. So, ma'am, do you think it is very important that one must have the exposure as a law student?
Yeah. Sakshi, I think that's one dilemma that all of the law students are pretty much sailing in. That is too much. Sometimes there's too much on the plate, and we also end up biting more than we can chew. Right? Uh, there's a lot of information out there. Social media also has a very big role to play, and then you have your peers also telling you, talking to you about the best of places or the best of opportunities that they have availed. So it becomes overwhelming. I understand. Uh, I would say, in the initial years only, 2 to 3 years after having done internships, you get to realize that what is your knack. That's you're very good at drafting. You understood the basics. Very good तो आप नहीं हो सकते हो. Third year
In the
तक
initial
या
years,
आप तो
definitely you
बहुत
cannot.
साल तक भी आप you cannot say that I am great at drafting. That doesn't happen. So initial years you should. I mean, let's say if I like uh, to or if I like criminal matters. Okay, if I understand criminal matters. So why don't you intern twice or thrice with an advocate who is dealing in such matters, who's an expert in such matters, and then by your third internships, you'll be very sure. Or let's say you say that you like corporate. There are 2 to 3 segments again. I'm sure you will like corporate has a lot. Corporate has right from incorporation of company to how companies are working to operation and mismanagement
To legal
to
advices.
mergers to consulting is there. Then you have private public partnership consulting is there. There's too much to corporate also, right? There's M&A, there's taxation. So again, then there's corporate governance also. So you again need to streamline. So let's say you have an interest in competition law. You can again intern, or you have an interest in IPR. So I'm sure that you understand your interest after second or third year. You understand that what is the field which you can add value to, not just interest, but you're also adding value to. And then to corporate, when you say nobody can tell you that I'm an expert in corporate laws throughout. I have done my master's in corporate law, but I still can't say that for every segment of corporate law I can be an expert. So you find out your niche
area in which you are the masters.
Segregate 2 to 3 verticals to it, intern in it, and then see where your interest lies. You can't be all over the place, right?
Sure,
so then too, I think it's 3 years is a good enough period for you to understand that you can just say that I'm good at taxation and this, or I'm good at probably I am or one subject also. I think similarly it goes for an academic subject also. I think in the interview you are generally asked this question: what is your area of interest, or what is the subject that you really liked as law student?
Contract.
So when you say contract or you say constitutional law, so if you pick that subject up from first year and target 1 to 2 subjects, I'll tell you academically, that if you're asked questions from that subject, by the end of 5 years, you build upon. So if you keep reading contract again and again, if you keep reading constitutional law, start with basics books and then you go to the advanced books. By 5 years, you'll definitely be in a position to, by the end of 5th year, to say that you know the subject, and if you're asked questions on the subject, you can definitely deliver. So I think
I would thank you so much for the answer, ma'am. The next question was like, how have you managed your intellect after completing the period of your internship when you come back to college?
Yeah.
it's a totally different atmosphere.
Yeah.
We have to go back to all the same books, the academics, the monotonous life, and during the time of internship, we were learning
Yeah.
new things.
Yeah.
So, do you think like the internship should be around 2-3 months to figure out like under a same lawyer or under the same corporate firm
Yeah.
to know your knack? Like, okay, I can do this better than any other things.
Uh, I can't take Sakshi. I can't take the weight from the value that academics also holds. I
Hmm.
mean, there's a lot of value that's there in academics as well. Uh, the whole process. So if you see, college is not just preparing you to take one exam.
Yeah.
Your academic curriculum is designed in a way. It's basically designed. It's a practice playground for you. That tomorrow you go to the court and you have a matter on taxation the next day.
Hmm.
You have no idea of taxation laws. Let's you get one night and you go through the night, you challenge yourself and you come up with something the next morning.
You have prepared well.
So we are preparing you the whole process. If you see,